Great. Now, what is Hippie going to post about? You know he is trying to raise money so he can get through college without getting a real job. Come on, man. Heater or no heater, please leave something for Hippie to complain about. Hello and welcome to the latest Broken Arrow breaking the news. We finally got our dev update. They did make it in time for Monday. It was like right before 5 p.m. on on Monday, so they did manage to sneak that in there. And honestly, I've not really read it yet, but it looks very, very well formatted. Very well formatted. What they said basically last time was the reason it was delayed was so they could translate it. It's an interesting argument, but it looks very nice. The production quality is there. I do hope they're not just fixing all the spelling mistakes because I point them out. I do think that is sort of a waste of time. But yeah, let's get reading. Let's learn some Broken Arrow news, right? So Dev Notes project status. We want to take some time to openly discuss the challenges the project is facing and how we are approaching them. Our goal is to give you a clearer picture of what's happening behind the scenes, both the problems we've identified and the steps we're taking to address them. Sorry, should have done that beforehand, I suppose. Stay hydrated. This collection of notes focuses on three critical areas for the health of multiplayer gameplay: the levers problem, the ongoing fight against cheating, and the matchmaking system. Each of these issues has a direct impact on how you play, and each requires a slightly different strategy to solve. Okay, not much to add here. Part 1, the levers problem. Broken Arrow is a team-based game, and when a team is missing players, it is at a serious disadvantage. This is correct. Player absence generally comes down to two categories. One, technical factors. Sometimes players fail to establish a connection to the server at the very start of the match, which means they are not registered by the server and cannot join. So it's good that they're admitting to this. Yeah, a lot of people leave because the game just crashes or whatever. There are many possible reasons for this, and we are continuously working on identifying and fixing them. In other cases, a player may lose connection during the match, and then the reconnect button may not appear. This issue will be addressed in patch 1.0.10. Until then, restarting the game can be used as a temporary workaround to force a refresh. So basically, in 1.0.9, and I think also in 1.0.8, they fixed this problem, but they haven't actually fixed it, and this is an issue a lot of people have had. So let's reconnect. Get the search on that. Right, so it's 1.0.9.1. It's not that one. It's not that one. Yeah, fix some edge cases preventing reconnect button from appearing. That's 1.0.9.1. No, that's 1.0.9. Okay. And yeah, so they tried to fix that, but it is still not fixed. So they're going to keep trying to fix it. This is a bit of an issue with the patch notes, is that there's a lot of things that they have fixed which aren't fixed. But I mean, presumably they thought they'd fixed it. Until then, restarting the game can be used as a temporary workaround to force a refresh. 2, players leaving voluntarily. Lack of tenacity. For players that leave voluntarily and abandon their team, we hope the levers penalty will help combat the bad habits of those players. While the surrender option allows the team as a whole to decide if they would like to leave the battle, in a team game, the situation can always change. If things are tough on one side of the map, your allies may have the upper hand elsewhere. The game is designed so that early mistakes don't decide everything, and each phase offers opportunities to come back. So, yeah, I mean, people leave for all sorts of reasons, right? They just don't want to play anymore. I mean, it is very common that you'll see somebody and they'll just lose a few units and they'll just quit because, I mean, I hate to say this, right, but think about the sort of person who plays video games all day. Why are they inside? And I include myself in this. Why are they inside playing video games all day instead of out there doing something with their lives? It's because they're a loser, right? And generally, losers just give up at the first sign of anything. So yeah, they lose a couple of units. Oh, I hate this game, and they just quit, and then they just go search another one, right, where they can get that feel good effect, right? And you know, you got to appreciate the fact that when you're talking to people on the internet, most of them, you know, they're there for a good reason. So, and I include myself in that. I am obviously a very strange person, right? I'm poorly socialized and so on. I'm the scourge of this game, if you believe everything these guys say. But anyway, avalanche effect. On top of that, one player leaving often triggers an avalanche effect when others follow. Well, yeah, I mean, if you lose three members of your team, what are you still doing there? A disconnect doesn't always mean someone is gone for good. It could be just be a temporary issue, and they may return. There's a 5 minute window to reconnect, and in the meantime, playing 4v5 is still viable since the smaller team receives extra income as compensation. So it's not really. I mean, I guess if it's only for 5 minutes, it is, but it's not because you don't get extra availability on your units. This is the big problem here. So you can only bring a maximum of what is it? I think it's two T14 Armatas or two SEP V3 M1A3 SEP V3 Abrams or whatever it is. M1A2 SEP V3. You know what I mean? And you can only bring like, you know, two of the best jet and stuff like that. And so if a bunch of guys on your team leave, sure you get more income, but if there's a tank fight, you're still going to lose it because you don't have as many tanks as your opponents do. Because even though you've got all that extra income, you can't spend it on more tanks. And if there's a big air combat, you're going to lose it because you don't have enough fighters. Because you know they've got say one fighter each between five of them, and there's only three of you, or you've only got three fighters. And you might say, well, just buy something else that helps. Well, what? I mean, the fighter example is a really, really good one. If you're having a big fighter battle, unless it's over your spawns, you can buy Patriot. You're just going to lose that fight. Tanks, you could say, will bring ATGM vehicles and so on, but you get my point. Unbalanced teams. Totally one-sided battles are not really fun to fight, and there is not much to learn when the skill difference is too big. Yeah, we've recently tweaked the matchmaker to make the acceptable elo difference between teams progress slower over time, and we capped the maximum discrepancy. The result is an increased probability to find a more balanced match at the cost of more wait time if teams in your elo bracket are rare. Yeah, so the top play. So as you know, I did that video interviewing the rank 1 player. He said he had a 45-minute queue time, like twice, and it's just very, very common that they'll just have super long queue times. And you know, there's always a trade-off, right? Do you want faster matches or do you want closer matches? The issue is when there were loads of players playing this game, and there aren't anymore, the player base has gone down by more than 90%, I think, since launch. Might be 80%. Might have gone down by 80%. Um, they just wasn't checking the elo at all, really. Everybody was just matching. Well, I suppose also everybody's elos were really close together because that's when the game first came out. So, and the way the elo system works is dreadful. Right? And so, yeah, there was just, you would just find a game straight away and it would be a stomp. Like 80, well, for me, it would be a stomp 80% of the time, roughly. I think I've got about an 85% win rate. And that's just because we were a 5 stack and the other guys weren't. And so we would just run over them. So, yeah, there's a cap so that you know, if you're a scrub, you will never be played. Oh, hey, hang on, they said it right here. We are aware that as a result, top teams of the leaderboard were having difficulties to find matches, even when waiting for a very long time, so we've recently tweaked this value again. The other thing that makes it worse is that most of the top stacks, bar one stack that I know of, maybe two, they all play Russia, and they enable that button that says no mirror matches, so they never find each other. So that doesn't help. And also, there's an exploit the top teams are using where they just intentionally Alt F4 at the right moment when they see who the enemy team is. So my friend, the rank 1 player, he comes up against these guys who just constantly all Alt F4 at the right time, and it cancels the match. They don't get a loss. They don't lose any elo. Whenever he comes up against these people, they all do it because they always do it. You know, not all of them, but some guys do it all the time, and it's because they just don't want to face them because they know they're going to lose because they're no good at the game. They just want to stomp the noobs. So this cap is nice because it means these noob stompers can't punch too far down. Development plan, vote for surrender and leavers penalty. These features will be introduced with patch 1.0.10, so we're finally going to get this, like 3 months after launch, but it doesn't say when. It does not say when. We are approaching penalties with caution. We don't want to punish players in cases where leaving is not their fault. Yeah, so like their game crashes because like it didn't actually mention that the game still crashes all the time. I guess it sort of works around it, but yeah, it does happen. But we need to address a problem that is currently hurting the quality of the game for our players. So after patch 1.0.10, a new button surrender. Hang on. Oh, okay. So after the day of the patch, it will be there, I suppose. A new button surrender and a new icon next to your name in the player list menu will be added. So apparently, Flix only has an ELO of 484. I assume that's just a test account. Clicking this button will pop up a window for you and your teammates, and if the vote is accepted, the match will end in a defeat for your team, and you will be able to see the scores and history of kills like at the end of any match. Players who leave the match without using the surrender function and don't reconnect will be considered as deserters. Deserters will be prevented from joining a new match during a period of time, increasing every time they desert, but reducing over time if they don't desert. I think that's a good idea. The other thing you can do is just make it so they can't find another match until their current match ends. So that reconnect button just never goes away. It's just always there. And when you try and search, it says, hey, you're already in a game. And then they can't leave until it finishes. And they got to stick around and surrender. But then you got issues with your teammates just sort of holding you hostage. These durations can be modified easily, so we'll observe how players react to the penalty and tweak them over time. Developing diagnostic tools. At launch, we lacked some auxiliary tools needed to fully measure the problems players encounter. Since then, we've been steadily working on building these tools and strengthening our technical foundation. This is not something that players immediately perceive, so while we're working on that, people have the impression that we are doing nothing. But in the long run, this will help us to react faster and better to all the issues we might face. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the game just shouldn't have come out when it did. I think most people understand that now. It just should not have come out, or it should have been declared as early access, because that's what it is. This is still going down. Still going down. So this came out on the 8th, and it's now the 9th, so we'll see how... Well, it was the... Yeah, look, it was right before the end of the working day, so they just squeezed it in there. And on the 8th, we had a 36% positive review score in English. And on the 9th, it's 43, but the 9th isn't over yet. So yeah, it's still going down. Steam have changed this so that now it just automatically will exclude reviews from other languages, thus solving the Chinese review bomb problem once and for all. Because if the Chinese review bomb your game now, and you don't have your Steam language set to Mandarin, you won't even notice. It won't even come up. You can change it, right? You can change it, but how many people are going to change it? I mean, I'd love to know, but I think the vast majority of people aren't going to change it. Frankly, I think it's a good idea. Oh man. Frankly, I think it's a good idea to because obviously the Chinese guys they're review bombing the game for something that matters strongly to them, and they have the right to do so. But I don't care. It's not. It's usually nothing to do with me. If the Chinese, because in this case they review bombed the game because one of their top players got banned because he played against a Ukrainian top player and he, according to the Chinese, he reported him to the devs and got him banned. But the Ukrainian player disputes that. Anyway, it's why should that? It doesn't matter to me. And like Helldivers 2, they review bombed it because you couldn't defend Shanghai or something. Well, it's important to them, and so if your language is in Mandarin, you will see all those reviews. But it's not important to me, and so I think that's a really good idea, actually. Anyway, small aside there. Part 2, fighting cheating. A fair environment is essential for any online game. One sec. What is that? 60, 14, 11. Cheating undermines trust, so we're tackling it on multiple fronts. So this is really important. Shifting authority from client to server. So basically, the way most RTS games work is they either have something called server authority or they have something called lockstep. And basically, in server authority, the server decides what happens. And so, if you say, by the way, I have 7 nukes, the server just says, what? No, you don't. And then it doesn't happen. Uh, The way lockstep works is, let's say it's a 3v3. Every single player's computer will compute every single thing that's happening in the game. So if one guy says, I have 7 nukes, by the way, the other 5 guys will say, no, you don't, and then he'll get kicked from the game. Because his game will just desynchronize. And if that's detected, he'll get kicked out. Otherwise, he'll just be playing in his own world where he's like, I'm getting loads of kills, but the way everybody else sees it, it wouldn't be happening. Although I suppose if it's lockstep and his thing wasn't the same, like the game would just crash basically, or just boot him out. The way Broken Arrow works is your computer says to everybody, says to the server, by the way, I have 7 nukes, and the server says, okay, I trust you, buddy, and then you've got 7 nukes, and that's why cheating in this game is so rampant. It's not just because the game's popular; it's because of a fundamental technical error they've made when programming this game. And until they fix that, the cheaters are never going to go away. It doesn't matter what they do; the cheating is never going to stop. So if you look at Wano, right, very similar game, much smaller player base, I'll grant you that, which is a shame. I think it's just because they didn't do any marketing. If you look at Wano, cheating's impossible. The only cheat that is possible is you can have full map vision. Any cheat where you give yourself extra income on or anything like that, either the server just boots you out or the game just desynchronizes. And on your screen, oh, I'm doing really well. And then at the end of the game, it just says it doesn't count because a desynchronization was detected. So that's the case for most RTS games. Just this one, it was their first game. For most of them, I'm pretty sure it was the first game they'd ever made. And they just didn't think to do it. A fundamental part of our approach is to gradually move more and more of the game's logic from the client side to the server side. This process is not simple, but it is essential. Yes, exactly. The more authority the server has, the fewer things remain on the client side that can be modified or exploited. With every step in this direction, we reduce the opportunities for cheats to exist, and over time, low-level manipulations will become practically impossible. So this is the thing. Most games start like this. Such a solution is difficult to imagine in fast-paced FPS games, where instant input recognition and hit registration are critical. However, in the RTS genre, this approach is much more realistic, and we intend to fully take advantage of this opportunity. I mean, it's all styled in the marketing sense, which I think is why you listen to me yap rather than just read it yourself, because I do have some knowledge of this. Where's my book? Okay, the book's not here, but I have a couple books on video game multiplayer development. I haven't released anything yet, so that's fair enough. But yeah, basically, the vast majority of RTS games already work with client authority or lockstep. So they're not going to exist. They're not going to say that, are they? Because it makes them look really bad. So anyway, combining it's good to hear that they're changing it. The point is, and they've just hired a new developer to do it. The thing is, it's going to take them like a year. It's going to take them about a year to fix that. So I wouldn't hold out. And the way the player population is going, which I can share with you, I suppose. Oops, right. I'll do that later. In fact, I could just do a quick edit here. Just do a quick edit here. Yes. All right, sorry about that quick edit there. I just had to get the player count up. So if you look at the all-time player count, it's gone from 38,000 at peak to 6,000. So if we get the calculator up, 6 divided by 38 times 500. So we're now at 15% of the original player count. And you might say, well, that's because the counter argument from the community, the publisher guys, is, oh, all games do this. But look, you can see. So from launch, in the first month, it lost 47% of its user base. In the second month, it lost 46% of its user base. This month isn't. Oh, yeah. The last 30 days thing doesn't matter because September isn't over yet. So 47, 46, but it's 46 of the new count. It's not 46 of the original, if that makes sense. So if we look at Age of Empires 4, like similar RTS, massive, right? Age of Empires. This website can be a bit of a pain sometimes. So yeah, look. And Age of Empires 4 had a really rough launch. If you remember, you could stab people from across the screen. You could throw fire torches from across the screen. You could just pick up your TC and just drop it next to the enemy one and finish the game in 2 minutes. Anyway, first month minus 44%, second month minus 19%. So even though this also had a terrible launch, it wasn't as bad. And presumably there was an update here because it was a bit more than the month after. So it is. They are hemorrhaging players. They got to do something, man. It's not great. Yeah. Combining internal and external solutions. In addition to developing our own server-based protections, we are also working on integrating a third-party anti-cheat system. This combination allows us to cover a wider range of potential exploits. External tools will complement our internal solutions, strengthening the overall system and ensuring that cheating becomes increasingly difficult and risky. So this is also good news, and this is also something which we have been asking for since before the game even came out. Because you can look back at my videos, I was saying it, and I'm not the only one, right? I'm not the ringleader in some kind of plot against this game. I know a lot of people, including their own community managers, like to sort of claim I am, but anyway, there are off-the-shelf anti-cheat solutions which are completely free. And so I just assumed they would use one of those, but they didn't do that. They tried to make their own and it doesn't work. So Easy Anti-Cheat is the one that I've constantly been suggesting. There are other ones. I don't know if Punk Buster's still around. And the thing is, games with Easy Anti-Cheat or Valve Anti-Cheat, right? That's VAC. That's where the VAC bans come from. They still have cheaters, but they have fewer than this game does. So it helps, is the idea. And it's free. It's free for them to implement it. So my money's on Easy Anti-Cheat. And yeah, it's nice to hear. Continuous monitoring and log analysis. Another pillar of our anti-cheat strategy is the systematic collection and analysis of logs from every multiplayer match. Even if a cheater is not detected and banned instantly, the information gathered during the match helps us identify suspicious activity and take action afterwards. This creates a long-term safety net that reduces the chance of persistent abuse going unnoticed. So if you've been listening to my videos, I asked for that as well. I said, why don't they do that? Basically, yeah, the server just constantly does these background checks and it builds up an opinion of the player, right? So if there's, it basically can, I called them sus moments, right? I've done videos asking for all three of these things. I'm not the only one who's been asking for it, but for me, it just sounded obvious. And, I was sort of told, Hippie, shut up, you're just stirring the pot. And now they're doing everything. So, it feels nice to be vindicated, I guess. I suppose they'll send me an apology. um, yeah, anti-cheat is an ongoing process. It is important to acknowledge that anti-cheat is not something that can ever be considered finished. It is a continuous evolving process where we adapt to new challenges and methods of cheating as they emerge. Despite this, we are already seeing results. More than 8,000 cheaters have been banned to date, and each improvement makes the game environment more balanced and fair. That's a lot of cheaters. I suppose that's all there is to say about that. Fixing bugs that look like cheats. Multiple bugs of synchronization can look like cheats either when they happen or when they are resynchronized by the server. For instance, if a unit is located in two different places for two opponents, they might both think that the other is cheating. When the server detects such desynchronization, it corrects the position of the unit, which is rapidly moved across the map. Yeah, so we've all seen this, the Usain Bolt units just randomly appearing in places. Fixing most of these bugs in patch 1.0.10 will help to reduce the impression of some players that every match contains a cheater. Yeah, so this is the other thing, that basically the game is so badly programmed that people just gain cheat-like abilities through no fault of their own. Which is actually, it's in some ways worse than the actual cheating. You can have invisible units running around shooting people, and on your screen you can see the unit, but the enemy can't. And you're not cheating, it's just the game's shit. You can also have, like the teleporting units, I suppose, is the other major one. Also, there's like lag armor. If somebody's like lagging loads, or if you're lagging loads, different players, if the two tanks are going through the smoke towards each other, I can't remember if it's whoever's lagging the least or whoever's lagging the most. One of the tanks will see before the other tank does, and it will shoot first, and it'll win because of that. So it's just nonsense, right? It's really annoying. Whereas in most RTSs, that's not possible because they use this lockstep thing, right? Where the game state will progress at the same rate for both players. And so the issue with that is if one guy's lagging, you will lag as well. That is a problem. But it does mean that in niche cases like that, you won't have things where like the guy who's lagging just survives all the missiles, which is very dumb. Part 3, matchmaking. So we're at the final part now. That is 24 minutes. Sorry, guys. Matchmaking is at the core of multiplayer. The goal is to find opponents quickly, of similar skill, and with stable connections. Our matchmaking system is based on the ELO algorithm. It is a simple yet well-established method of measuring players' skill, and like any other rating system, its objective is to pair opponents of similar skill levels to make the match more entertaining than if the teams were matched randomly. However, the system has certain limitations that we're working to address. ELO inflation. Do you guys remember when I made that video about ELO inflation and a bunch of people, including the guy who wrote this, told me that it didn't exist? I gotta tell you, man, reading this is very, very vindicating. I've been right about basically everything. Well, okay, not absolutely everything, but there's a lot of things here which, I mean, yeah, exactly. Anyway, this is exactly what I said. Man, ELO points are exchanged like a currency between players, depending if they win or lose. But since every player starts with points, each new player entering the system is the equivalent of generating more currency, which results in inflation, like for real money. I mean, this is literally what I said. The effect is partly balanced out by players who leave the game for good, with their rating points gradually fading from the system. This can generate periods of inflation or deflation, depending on the number of players joining or leaving the game. Right, so this isn't actually... They're missing out a key problem with it, right? In most games, if you gain 20 elo, your opponent loses 20 elo, and everybody starts with the middle elo of 1500, for example, it's a common number. And so 1500 will always be the medium elo, the median elo, because if I gain 25, you lose 25, right? So even though the total elo goes up when more and more people play the game, right? The elo should still follow that lovely normal distribution. The way Broken Arrow have done it, and I did do 2 videos on this, and I was told that this was not a thing, and now they're saying it's a thing. Is that basically it's like the more you play, the more elo you get. There's like some kind of booster built in that the system's constantly generating more elo. So in a game, if I gain 30 and you lose 25, it's like me printing £5 extra. That's literally what it is, right? And it's like printing money. The effect is partly balanced out by players who leave the game for good, with their rating points gradually fading from the system. So that's like if everybody saves their money instead of spending it. It reduces inflation in the economy, right? This can generate periods of inflation or deflation depending on the number of players joining or leaving the game. Well, it depends how if you just count everybody's elo, including the guys who are left, then there's never any deflation, right? Another limitation is the absence of elo degradation. This means that players who take a long break retain the same rating, even though their performance after a long pause may differ. So all of these things are like basically twisted abominations of the elo system. The way it's supposed to work is everybody starts at 1500. If I gain 25 off you, you lose 25. That's just how it should work. But they've tried to do this funny extra system, ha ho ha ha, and it's just fucked everything up. They shouldn't even call it elo. It isn't. It's a bastardization of it. But anyway. This means, yeah. So also the rating only tracks the history of victory and defeats of the players, but not their individual performance during the matches, which means that the score of a player is actually the average of his score and the scores of the other players they intend to play with. Yeah, so my elo's boosted by my teammates, right? Royce carries me every game. Not afraid to admit it. Broken Arrow's a lot like life. It's just about who you know. These two issues can lead to less accurate matchmaking results, but the problems would disappear if players simply kept playing without taking rating into consideration, as the discrepancies would be corrected after several matches. Which leads to our final and trickiest problem, because it's not technical but psychological. Yeah, the guy who made the system's got an ego, and he doesn't want to admit that he fucked up. Players hate to see their rating reduced and treat it as if it was a mountain of gold coins that must be hoarded and slept on like a dragon. Oh, okay, it's your fault. It's your fault they made the system bad. It's not their fault. So they try many methods to avoid losing their precious points. Dodge difficult matches, refuse to play with even slightly weaker players, even sometimes stop playing at all rather than risking a defeat that would reduce their rating, which totally defeats the initial goal of the rating system, which is to play interesting matches. Yes, so it's your fault. Why did you do this? Why did you ruin Broken Arrow? Their system was perfect. Their system was perfect. There was nothing wrong with the Barbarous. You're just bad at dealing with it. This is Goodhart's law. The measurement tool becomes the objective, and players prefer to have virtual points than to have real fun. They literally deliberately made it so that the system inflates the elo, and they blamed it on you. Beyond skill, latency, and party balancing, skill is only one part of matchmaking. To ensure a fair and smooth experience, our system also factors in additional parameters. Average party elo, when players join as a group, the system considers their combined rating rather than treating each player separately. Well, yeah, isn't that what happens anyway? It's just trying to match Team A's elo against Team B's elo. How else would it do it? Average party latency. Matchmaking also measures the connection quality of both parties and tries to place them on the most suitable server. This is especially important for maintaining stable gameplay across regions. Yeah, so this is another problem the guys at the super high end have, but as the player count continues to deteriorate, it's becoming more of a problem just for everybody, is that you end up on, like, the Asian server, and then you have all these problems with, you know, your missiles missing and stuff because your ping to the server's 200 milliseconds. Unless you're watching this from Asia, in which case you have the opposite problem. You end up on the EU server, right? Balancing these elements ensures that players are not only evenly matched in skill, but also have the best possible technical conditions for their games. A balance between speed and fairness. Every matchmaking system is ultimately a compromise between speed and accuracy. Our priority is to keep players in the action while still maintaining fairness in matches. We are proud to share that 90% of the audience currently finds a match in less than 1 minute, which is an unprecedented result for the wargame genre. Is that true? I guess because most people have low because the elo, right? The way the elo is supposed to work is that it's supposed to look like, so imagine this is, this is elo, right? And this is, no, hang on. This is elo. This is elo, right? And this is number of people who have this elo, number of players at this elo, right? The way elo is supposed to work in a normal elo system that hasn't been broken to appease, to blame the people for your thing doing this. It's supposed to look like that, right? Okay, I mean, this is supposed to be there, but they call it a normal distribution. Most people are supposed to be at the average, which is like 1500, right, for most systems. And there's very few people here, and there's very few people here. This is called a normal distribution. It's very, very common. Like IQ, many things in life are like this. Height is like this. Most people are average. And there's very, very few people out here. There's very, very few people, down here, I suppose, if they're, very short. The way the Broken Arrow one works, because they deliberately made it so that it just gives you more elo the longer you play, and then they say it's your fault because you hoard your elo like a dragon, and not their fault for making the system work like this, is the elo actually kind of looks, it looks like this. So everybody starts at like 400, and then this tail just keeps going and going and going all the way down, right? And so, like, there's like one guy all the way up here. I don't know, it keeps going up. By the time you're watching this, it'll go up more. It was 2,800 last time I checked. But most people are around 400 because the way the elo works is that you start off really low and then your elo just keeps going up the more you play. But most people don't play that much. Also, if you lose loads, then yes, it does go down. But for the most part, it just keeps going up. Anyway, these guys are all going to find their game super fast. And I guess that is most people because of the way the distribution is. Like, this is probably the 90% mark, right? I mean, it's very approximate, right? And so most people are probably finding the game super fast, yeah. But everybody, I only speak to people who are really good at Broken Arrow, right? So we all have, like, 3 million year search times. That's crazy. Yeah, just in the top 10% there. Anyway. Game server selection and connectivity. Our long-term solution is to implement a game server selection feature allowing players to choose servers that provide the best possible connection. Estimate development time over 3 months. Ugh. So yeah, if you play a game like Dota 2, you just open up the server browser and it says, where do you want to search? EU West, EU East, or all the other ones. And basically, everybody just clicks EU West. Even if they're in China, Russia, North America, South America, they all click EU West. So it's not going to solve any problems, basically, because everybody's going to want to play on the European server anyway, because we're the best, right? I don't know. You'd have to ask the Dota players why they all go on EU West. Basically, it's because the quality of the games is higher on EU West, right? And they don't like their own people. So it's not me insulting their people; it's them insulting their people. But it does happen. In the meantime, we're continuing to improve our server picking algorithm so that matches are hosted on servers that minimize latency for all players involved. Okay. Looking ahead, we will continue to refine and improve matchmaking to address the challenges mentioned above. Our goal is to make every match not only fast to find, but also fair and competitive as possible. But they're fighting this entropy, right? So at the start, the system was broken, which was a shame. And also the elo hadn't spread out yet, and because of the way they made the elo system, this means that it takes ages for the elo to spread out down this curve. Whereas in a normal elo system, if you lose, your points just go down, they go down. If you win, the points go up, they go up. And so there's two directions of travel, right? Do you see what I mean? So the it's like anything, right? If you spread something one way, it's not going to spread out as fast as if you spread it two ways simultaneously. So they can improve the algorithm all they want, but if people just stop playing the game, then you're going to have long search times. Having said that, 6,000 is still a lot of people, actually. Post-release retrospective. After the release, our team went into what we often call firefighter mode, tackling the most urgent problems as quickly as possible to stabilize the game. This phase left little room for deep analysis, but it was essential to make sure that everyone could keep playing. Once the immediate fires were under control, we shifted our focus to longer-term improvements and deeper investigations. This work may appear slower from the outside, but is vital for stability and for building a strong foundation that the game could grow on. At launch, our team was very small. Yeah, there's only about 30 of them in the credits. It's actually a lot. It's not as small as you might think. Thanks to the support of our community, we have since expanded and brought in new expertise. Onboarding new members takes time. Yeah, I've said this before as well. It's going to take like a year for that network guy to do stuff, right? Sometimes up to 2 months before their work reaches the live game. But this investment ensures that we can deliver stronger, more sustainable improvements in the long run. So it would have been nicer if they said, what did they actually tackle? Because I've heard from a lot of people, because basically people keep asking me to cover these because they're frustrated and they want to listen to somebody else who's also frustrated. But at this point, I just find it really funny. They've already got their money, by the way. This game sold 3 times more than Wano, right? It was 2 to 3 times more than Wano. And so they've made enough as far as they're concerned, right? Obviously, it would be great if the game did really well because then it would sell more. But they've already made their money back. And if they don't have to pay for server hosting for 38,000 people, oh, what a shame. But no, I do think they do want the game to succeed because then they would make even more money, right? So it doesn't make sense for them to want it to fail. But no, I think it would be very good of them to say what exactly did they fix, and you know, what are you investigating? Because this is just like, yeah, we just fixed a bunch of stuff. Well, the people certainly don't seem to think so. So anyway, closing. We hope this extended note gives you a better understanding of how we're tackling 3 of the biggest challenges in Broken Arrow: levers, cheating, and matchmaking. None of these problems have quick or final fixes, but with each step we are making steady progress. We'll continue sharing updates like this to keep you informed, not just about our victories, but also about the difficulties we're working through. We'll also be sharing a roadmap, so this is something a lot of people have been asking for, right? Like, what's going to be added, when's it going to be added, in what order, right? Dead simple. Most projects have one of these. That outlines our vision for the project's growth and development in the year ahead. Knowing that so many of you care deeply about the game makes all the difference, and we can't thank you enough for being part of this journey with us. So there you go, a very well written thing, right? They had to delay it to the next week, and clearly it's extremely well written, right? There were no speller mistakes or anything like that, so they've upped their game. It's correctly formatted. Nothing in it is formatted wrong. There's this. I always thought there would be a capital letter after the colon, but I mean, it just doesn't matter really. I didn't spot any spelling mistakes. Very well written. But at this point, so as far as I'm concerned, this is a good dev diary, right? They talked a lot about the problems. They're obviously not just going to come out and say, yeah, sorry, we fucked up. But yeah, they're talking about what they're doing. They're implementing most of the things we've asked for. And yeah, that's nice. It's just at this point, it's kind of like, have you ever been in a room with somebody who's really angry, and you turn to them and you say, "Look, just calm down." What do? They don't calm down. They get even angrier. And I feel like that's where most of the community is, right? So we're at 40% positive, and these are just the English ones. If you include the Chinese ones, it's way lower. And the Russian ones are lower as well, I think. For some reason, the Spanish ones are really high. I don't know why. Um, and it continues to fall, and the player count continues to fall. Like I said, I think they've already made enough money, so obviously it's always nicer to make more money and to have a successful. Like nobody wants their project to fail, right? But what I'm saying is like the studio isn't just going to die because of this. They've already succeeded. Everything else is just icing on the cake. But yeah, as you can see, these scores aren't turning around. They're still actually, because these are the recent ones and this is the overall one. So 62% in English, which is probably the one. I mean, no offense, guys, it's probably the one that matters the most. I mean, you're listening to this in English, right? But 40% in the last 30 days are English. And so this score will continue to fall until the reviews per day go above 62%, which they've not done. I think there was one day where they were 60 there, that's close. But no, they keep going down. And, if you just read some of these recent reviews, and they just say loads of cheaters, loads of cheaters, game runs bad, loads of cheaters, no replay, no surrender, loads of cheaters, loads of cheaters, loads of cheat. What? It's every single one. Terrible campaign. This guy didn't know any cheaters. Bad, bad. Okay. So yeah, like, what do you think? And it's a genuine question. Like, what do you think? Like, because at this point, they're basically saying everything we want to hear, but it's not in the game yet. And there's that thing where they said they communicate every week. This was one day late. Will we get another one this week? We should do. I don't think we will. Um, but we will, maybe, and I'll cover it if we do. And it's just one of those things where the person is already angry and you're just telling them to calm down. And I think most people have already given up. I reckon because you can still get matches, right? With 6,000 players, you can still get matches, so that's nice. Obviously, it sort of rises and falls, right? Goes down to about 2,000 at 7 in the morning, but that's like peak American hours actually. That's like 11 p.m. Oh, okay, so it depends which coast you're on. It's like midnight American time. Goes down to 2,000. That's still plenty. I play Wano. Wano's like dead compared to this game, right? Look at that, not even 1,000. And it goes down to 300, and you can still find matches. So the game still has what I would consider a healthy player base, but this trend line obviously isn't healthy. It just keeps going down and down. I reckon what'll happen is this time next year, Broken Arrow will be a really good game. I genuinely believe that. I think the new network guy they hired will fix their shit, and it'll take him about a year, I reckon. And then they'll add extra specs, and they'll probably add China. And I reckon in about a year from now, we're going to look back and we're going to say this game's really good. But for now, we're in the game not the really good part, and I recommend just playing something else. Steel Division 2 just got a new DLC. It's like this, but World War Two. Wano just got a new DLC. It's like this, but 1989. There's loads of other games. I'm trying to think. Age of Empires 4 new DLC. Borderlands 4 is coming out. So just chill out, right? They've already. I know it sucks because you paid all this money and the game's still shit, and they just keep saying things and not doing them. But what else can you do? What else can you do? Leave your negative review if you want to vent, and just go play something else. Come back in a year, and I reckon it'll be really good. In the meantime, anybody who's like, should I buy it yet? No.